Hello, thanks for joining this session today. We're going to talk about preventing cloud lock-in with modern data architectures. So, my name is Andrea Vasco. I'm a sales engineer at Couchbase. I've spent the last 15 years of my career tackling problems around performance and capacity management and optimization across the IT spectrum: servers, storage, network, middleware applications. I tackle problems related to analytics and BI, and also databases, data management, and data science. And in today's conversation, we're going to talk about database as a service. But let's put some context first. We now live in the era of the multi-cloud, and that means that some of the workloads that run in today's organizations are no longer running within the organization's estate anymore. That means that part of your workloads may run into a public cloud, and the public cloud of your choice may not be unique. So, as an organization, you may very rightfully decide to run some workloads on Amazon, some workloads on Google, and some workloads on Microsoft Azure. And as a result, to this proliferation, right, of usage of the public cloud providers, organizations out there started to ask to find ways to bring some order, if you will, to create some control mechanism that will provide a unified single view and management plane across all this complexity that would be at the same time secure, of course, and especially with databases. We're dealing with data, security is paramount, but also fully automated in order to bring ease of use within complexity. But at the same time, especially with the rise of software as a service, many vendors out there will provide software as a service with the caveat of forcing users to buy into a specific choice of public cloud provider. In other terms, if you want to use a specific product, you need to deploy and run and buy licensing to a specific cloud provider. And that is not necessarily a good thing. This is referred to as the locked in effect within public cloud providers. And for organization, this can have pretty negative effects because, you can lose leverage when it comes down to negotiating terms because you have no choice. Well, I'm super proud and happy to say to you today that we believe that at Couchbase, we found a way to solve these problems at once. So to provide us, from one side, a centralized multi-cloud deployment management solution that can act securely and fully automated, that at the same time is also freeing you from any kind of risk of lock-in, allowing you to deploy your workloads in any public cloud of your choice. You decide where it makes more sense. We are not taking that decision for you. But before we deep dive into that, let me just spend a few minutes talking about Couchbase for those of you that may not be absolutely familiar with us. We provide an enterprise class multi-cloud NoSQL database that is built upon four main differentiators. The first, we are cloud native. We have not adapted to cloud technologies and containerization technologies. But by design, from day zero, our products were designed to take full advantage from cloud and containerization technology. So we did not adapt it, we were thought and designed to run onto them. Therefore, our architecture is distributed by design. That means that we can scale out. There is no concept of a master and a slave. You can take full advantage of parallel processing in a distributed fashion. We are in the unique position of, from one side, taking full advantage of NoSQL when it comes down to schema-less deployment, schema read, schema write, all these kind of features that those of you are already familiar with NoSQL knows very well. But at the same time, we combine this power of NoSQL with the familiarity of SQL, coming up with a proprietary language called Nickel that allows you to use a language pretty close to SQL in order to query the data, allowing you to repurpose all the knowledge that for sure you have within your organization around SQL within a NoSQL realm. And last but not least, we are capable of combining an incredible set of features in a unique, elegant platform that spans from the cloud, and this is going to be the scope of our conversation today, down to the edge. And by the edge, I mean mobile devices like phones or tablets, but also the realm of the Internet of Things. Our architecture from a logical perspective, right, can be represented in layers, as you can see here from this wheel diagram. At the very center, there are some few core capabilities. Memory first, we are in a memory database, right? That allows you also to persist, however, the content of the memory on disk, and is scalable in an elastic way by design. And on top of that, we provide support for transactions, including ACID transactions, and also the ability to create replications that can be inter-data center or cross-data center. These are the core capabilities upon which we build a layer of integrated data access services. This can serve different purposes. We have key value, right? In order to query the data in the key value approach, indexing and querying for operations related to SQL-like kind of querying, full text search, analytics, eventing, or mobile. Each and every one of these services connect independently. We refer to that as multi-dimensional scaling, but that means that you can mix and match these services within a cluster. You can decide that a cluster is just dealing with analytics, whereas another cluster is dealing with full text search. Or, I mean, you can define any kind of mix and match, but more importantly, you can isolate these workloads, therefore get the best out of any kind of hardware architecture you put behind Couchbase. So under this very, very strong foundation, over this very strong foundation, we then build and fulfill the promise of an agile development at scale. And we do so by, of course, ensuring a full stack security, right? Either over the wire, of course, locally. We provide, as I said, by design support for container and cloud deployments. We provide a unified programming model by a set of SDKs that are provided for the major and most popular programming languages out there. I'm referring to Go, Scala, Java, Node.js, C#, and the list is pretty long. But I mean, I already gave you some names. And last but not least, we recognize that we might not be the only data platform currently running in your organization, right? That would be naive, if you will. And for this reason, we also provide the ability to integrate with your own existing big data platforms and SQL platforms by means of easy to use integration so that you can make synergy between technology that may already be working well for you in your organization, but then interoperate with Couchbase and unleash the potential of Couchbase. So I said that Couchbase can be deployed into the cloud. So what are the cloud deployments model? Well, as you can expect, we can deploy essentially anywhere. You can decide to deploy Couchbase in your own private cloud, but that means that you are essentially onboarding all the work, right? You need to configure the hardware, the software, make it run, upgrade, and so on and so forth. You're going to have in return the maximum flexibility, customizability, and performance. But of course, you're going to put in a lot of effort and a lot of investment upfront, of course, to understand the technology and so on and so forth. You can either decide to go to a public cloud. And if you're going to go to the public cloud, you're essentially deploying a Couchbase into an infrastructure as a service approach, where you're going to buy some capacity out of your cloud provider of choice. It doesn't really matter to us, right? It can be AWS, IBM, GCP, Azure, any kind of public cloud provider. And once that you have that capacity, you can install Couchbase on top of that. And that's fine as well. Or, and this is a brand new offering, right, that we're going to kind of introduce to you today, you can opt in for the database as a service offering that we just pointed out to the market that goes by the name of Couchbase Cloud, where essentially everything is automated for you. We take care as Couchbase as creating a management console for you, as automating the deployment and the life cycle of the Couchbase cluster, and everything that is left for you to do is essentially to bring in your own data and start using Couchbase, right, for what Couchbase does the best, and leave the rest to us. But how is that possible? Well, let's talk about Couchbase Cloud, right? So what are some key features of Couchbase Cloud? This is a 10,000 feet view. So of course, it's fully managed, which means that things like sizing, deployment, operations, all of that, it's not on you, it's on us. And we're going to see it's on a very specific component within the Couchbase Cloud architecture. It's completely automated. And of course, it's completely secure, right? Something that I always like to highlight, of course, that all the data is encrypted at rest over the wire, but you can also implement multi-factor authentication for some key operations. It's flexible, right? We're dealing with the cloud, and spoiler alert, we are dealing with containerized applications. Is highly available, and this is something that is independent from the cloud offering. It's a key feature for cloud as for the security. But last but not least, from a cloud economics perspective, it is extremely effective. We provide an hourly pricing. We provide a volume discounts for prepaid credits, right? We pay by credits that can be used can be purchased either in advance with discounts, or can be just paid as you go. But more importantly, we are not forcing you to choose any kind of VPC. You bring your own VPC, you bring your own cloud infrastructure, right? And that allows you to have a lot of leverage with cloud providers in order to get the best deal that you can get. But how can we do that? So before introducing the Couchbase Cloud, I believe it's important to introduce another actor in our ecosystem of portfolio, the autonomous operator. So if you're not familiar with the concept of an autonomous operator, in general, right, not just the Couchbase one, but in general, an operator is an application-specific controller that extends the Kubernetes API to essentially do something more complex. And historically, if you go back in time, you're probably gonna agree with me that operators was first introduced to allow Kubernetes to run stateful applications, things like databases, right, where you gotta have some knowledge of the state, right? And that was something that natively Kubernetes was not really strong at. And that was the need, right, give the rise to the autonomous operators. But as they progressed, developers realized that autonomous operators can do much more than just guarantee a stateful condition over Kubernetes. But they realized that a developer could create within the operator all the logic to have some application-specific knowledge and automate common tasks and enforce best practices. And in the realm of Couchbase, our autonomous operator not only allows us to deploy Couchbase on Kubernetes, so over containers, but at the same time, we ship within the same product for you a sort of mini software engineer from Couchbase that it's taking care of provisioning, recovery, geographical distribution, centralized management, and best practices enforcement, persistent storage, and supportability features. So we provide to you the product that can run over the containers, and at the same time, all the logic and the necessary information in order to operate the container at the best. And so let's now take a look at the simplified architecture for Couchbase Cloud, just to give you a taste, right, of how it works. So the entry point is unique and is the single pane of management. And this is the only element of the architecture that is actually hosted on a network belonging to Couchbase, so in Couchbase property. So as a user, you would just log in into the Couchbase Cloud Control Plane, which is again an application hosted in our own network. But from there, you may decide, and as I said, the VPC is your choice, to deploy a cluster, Couchbase cluster, through the cloud into a VPC, where it would make more sense, either from a strategic perspective, an affinity perspective, or barely an economical perspective. In this case, let's assume that AWS is the VPC of choice. What's going to happen next is that from the single pane of management, right, we can instantiate in a secure way the deployment of a management plane running the autonomous operator. We do that for you. You don't have to do anything specific. This management plane, right, that is then installed over your VPC of choice, again, in this case, AWS, will then create the data plane, and your application will deal with the data plane that is within your VPC. That means that your data will never leave your premises and properties. You decide where your data resides, and there is no shuffling around of the data. So ideally, if you want to deploy this kind of configuration across different cloud vendors or different regions from the same cloud vendors, you can do so. You're going to have one single entry point, which is the Couchbase Cloud Control Plane, and that plane will allow you, right, to manage the complexity of a multi-cloud deployment and also interoperate these clouds and replicate information across different clouds. A task that may sound very, very complicated, and probably it is, but with Couchbase Cloud becomes extremely easy. Last but not least, what makes this Couchbase Cloud unique, right? So, of course, the first point is that this Couchbase Cloud is run and powered by Couchbase, which is the world's most powerful NoSQL database. We refer to that as NoSQL, and we firmly believe so. Point number two, and this is probably my favorite, your data is secured and isolated within your own cloud environment. No shuffling around, no movement. Your data resides where your data belongs. You have then the ability to put together replication and disaster recovery strategies that can be local to the cloud or intercloud, which is pretty amazing. You have a single pane of glass of management for multi-cloud deployments that take advantage of the autonomous operator that will help you to enforce and maintain a given configuration of a cluster that, if you're familiar with Kubernetes, you can kind of foresee that this configuration is dependent on a YAML file that we manage for you. And last but not least, we firmly believe that we provide the best price per performance of any NoSQL offering. And this is largely because we do not force you to buy any kind of public cloud provider license, right? You have the complete freedom to choose whatever makes sense for you, and we are not charging back to you any kind of license, right, that we are onboarding on your behalf. So that's why we believe that cost-wise, we are the most cost-effective solutions today in the market. So I would say enough with the talking, right? And let's take a look at Couchbase. All right, so I'm going to exit from my presentation and just go to cloud.couchbase.com. So here, as in any kind of software as a service offering, you are first offered to sign in. If you do not have an account, you can sign up. In order to create an account, you're going to have an activation ID. That would be essentially, will go together with the creation of a tenant, right, of an organization, if you will, in order to segregate and just put some wire across a specific property, if you will. If you do not have an activation ID, you are free to request a free trial. We do offer a 30 days free trial where customers can just give it a try to Couchbase Cloud, see how they like that. And of course, if you want to provide us feedback, more than happy to. You then provide your full name, email address, and then the password. And I mean, ideally, you can sign up. I happen to already have an account, so let me just sign in. Let me just use my right account. And once that you sign in, you're now brought to the Couchbase Cloud Management Console. So here on the top left, you see we have this selector. Here we have field engineering and Couchbase, and these are the tenants. These are the tenants my account is currently associated to. So an administrator can create a tenant through an activation key and can define a user over that specific tenant. And I belong currently to our field engineering tenant and a more generic and general Couchbase tenant. Let's stick to field engineering. Here we have a dashboard that tells me what is the status of the clouds that are brought in, the projects, the clusters, and the users. Let's take a look at the clouds. Here in the clouds, these are the bring your own VPC kind of approach. So here we are configuring, right, all the clouds upon which we would like to deploy clusters. And you can connect your cloud by clicking your connect cloud. You would provide a name, an available region, right, and the CIDR block. Currently, we provide support for AWS, but it's already in roadmap to provide support pretty soon for Azure and the GCP. So ideally here, you're going to be able to decide what type of cloud you would like to connect to. So the cloud is the first step. The second step, if you will, is the projects. The projects are the logical division of resources, if you will. There is no golden rule as to how to create projects. In this case, we are segregating by the name of a sales engineer or field engineering in general. So these are all my colleagues. But I mean, in your organization, may make sense to divide by department, HR, finance, engineering, and so on and so forth, or by specific initiative, right, within your own organization. As I said, there is no golden rule, but creating a new project is pretty easy. Just click on create project. You're gonna give a name and who are the users that may log into this specific project. Once you have the cloud and the projects, within the project, you can create a cluster, right? And this is where, I mean, there is the goodness of the autonomous operator, if you will. So you can see all the clusters that you're entitled to see. In this case, I can see them all. And if you want to create a new cluster, you just go here and say, hey, I want to create a new cluster. This can be called Andrea is the best, right? And you can specify either to use an existing or a new cloud. I'm happy with the existing cloud. This says Engineers EMEA looks the right one. And then the project, and here you specify what is the project upon which you want to deploy. In this case, I'm happy with my own project, right? Don't want to mess around with my colleagues' stuff. I can create a cluster now, and here we are offered to either use a pre-sized environment, right, or create a customized one. I'm happy with these predefined environments, right? Here we have 1 or 3 nodes, right? It can be just one node, super small, or the composition of 3 nodes, right? Here there is the size in AWS terms. There is a key value optimized or query optimized, right? So you can scale up to pretty substantial deployments. Let's say that for the sake of this example, let's just stick with an XS. So very small deployment. In this final window, I'm summarized all the options that I selected, right? And if I'm happy with them, I need to specify what is the support plan. And essentially I need to choose 2 things. First, what is my time zone, right? And that will route to the most convenient support team. Since I'm based out of London, GMT is essentially the best choice for me. And then you can decide what type of support you would like to have. Developer Pro, Enterprise Pro. They have different costs as of credits per hour, right? But again, if you go for the free trial, right, just try it out. Everything is going to be for free. I will not dive into the economics as of today, but just feel free to reach us if you want to know more, of course. So I'll just stick with Developer Pro, and then I can select Deploy. And once I select deploy, essentially the autonomous operator behind the scenes will do its magic, right? So behind the scenes, I have configured a YAML file, and this YAML file, right, it's passed through the autonomous operator that is now configuring the cluster, right, in the way that we have specified. So it's going to take a while. It typically takes between 5 and 10 minutes, depending on the complexity. But I happen to have already a cluster that I created before under one Kenobi, as you can see here. And this is what you can expect, right? So you have this overview. And for those of you that are already familiar with the Couchbase interface, this interface is pretty similar. I have, and here we can have an idea of what is going on at the moment, right? With this specific cluster, we can review what are the nodes, right? And we can see here in this case, we have 3 nodes. Each and every node is implementing the data indexing and querying service. We can take a look at the buckets, right? Here we have an empty bucket with Couchbase Cloud Bucket. But if we wish so, right, under tools, we can import some sample data. So I can just specify to I can just ask Couchbase to import my travel sample for me, and it will just go. Or if you want to bring your own data, either in format of JSON or CSV, you can do it from here. So again, if you think about testing this solution out, getting you started is super easy. So as I said, even here in travel samples, we have the information, and now it's been populated. We have this section called Connect, where essentially we have the information about the connection endpoints that can be used within the context of the SDK in order to connect and interact with this cluster. We can specify replications. We have not specified any replication specifically here, but this is the XDR section of Couchbase Cloud. For those of you who are not familiar with Couchbase XDCR, is essentially a replication mechanism that allows you to replicate information, namely a specific bucket with some filtering criteria, if you will, across different clusters, right? And these different clusters may or may not belong to different data centers. And this replication can be either unidirectional or bidirectional, which is pretty cool. In the same page, we have access to backup and restore, right? So we can either manage some auto-saving policies, right? We can define here, or simply run the manual backup. And these use the same technology that we currently use in the Couchbase server. So if you're already familiar with that, you're the CB backup manager. If you're familiar with that, you already know what is the drill. Last but not least for you, if we can have access to the indexes that we have created, right? And if you want to take a look at documents or the query workbench, we need to create a database user. I've not created it here as of now, but I mean, oops, I clicked the wrong one. This is the documentation, but if I want to create a database user, right, I can create a new user to access database, and then I can use that user to just browse the information that I have available. Within Couchbase Cloud, then, we can, of course, audit the users, the one that we can see and, of course, interact with. We can review the activity, so we can see the full list of the activities and logged actions that, of course, we are entitled to see. In this case, I can only see what I have done. We can take a look at how's the billing is going, right? In terms of credits or clusters, right? We can see what are the projected costs per projects and what is the current usage, right? In terms of course, credits. We have a direct line to support. So if you need to create a support ticket, you do not have to remember anything specific or do anything to stick to any specific process. Everything is embedded within Couchbase Cloud itself, right? Including the ability to attach files and share them with support. As I said multiple times already, if you decide to give it a try to Couchbase Cloud and just want to provide us some feedback, we included the feedback mechanism within the Couchbase Cloud itself. And last but not least, if while using Couchbase, you're not really feeling certain as to how to perform certain operations, we included the link to the documentation as the very last item. So you can come here and just, search for any kind of information that you may be in need of. So this will conclude this brief overview about the Couchbase Cloud. Let me go back to the presentation just for the final wrap up. So we were at seeing is believing, but now what is next for you, right? What should you do next? Well, if you're willing to kickstart your Couchbase Cloud journey, here's some recommendations from you. First, learn more about the Couchbase Cloud. And I mean, this is the URL, couchbase.com/products/cloud. But I mean, just Google Couchbase Cloud, and this is going to be the first page, right? Just go there. You're going to find all the information about the features and deployment plans, pricing, if you will. And I mean, if you have further questions from there, you can just reach out to us, and we will be happy to answer all your questions. Once you learn more, hopefully you decided to give it a try, and you can try Couchbase Cloud. The entry point, as I said, is cloud.couchbase.com. But I mean, I would strongly invite you to take full advantage of the 30 days free trial, right? If you are uncertain as to what type of application should be a good candidate to try give it in Couchbase Cloud, just feel free to give us a call, shoot us an email, right? Engage with us, and we'll be happy, right, to guide your decision. But I mean, I would strongly recommend not to miss out on this unique opportunity of using this technology for 30 days for free, and also provide a feedback. And last but not least, but this is valid throughout any kind of matter related to Couchbase NoSQL, or more in general, strategic decisions, right? Engage with us. More in specific, on YouTube, on this URL, which is pretty complicated, you can find a demo. But again, you log into YouTube, you just search for Couchbase Cloud Demo. This video will just pop up. So you want to see, if you would like to see another take on the demo, maybe more in detail, this is where you would like to go. But last but not least, the forums. So this is where you can engage with us, forums.couchbase.com. We have a specific dedicated section related to the Couchbase Cloud. So if you would like to have some peer conversation with other customers and prospects and people that are trying out the solution, or would like to just engage directly with our engineers, that is the place where you can have a conversation around topics related to Couchbase Cloud. All right, I guess this will be it. I thank you so much for your attention, and hopefully you find all this content inspiring and I made very good use of your time. This is certainly my hope. If you would like to know more, well, I mean, Couchbase.com is a good entry point, or any of your Couchbase contacts. Of course, it will be at your disposal to help you out. But if you'd like to reach out directly to me, right, for feedback or questions or any kind of related matter, here are my contacts. Andrea.vasco@couchbase.com. This is my email. If you wanna look me up on Twitter, I go by the handle TryVasco, because I mean I used to be a triathlete. And last but not least, if you wanna connect on LinkedIn, right, /Andrea Vasco is my it will redirect you to my profile. All right, that was it. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope you're going to have a successful journey with Couchbase and Couchbase Cloud. Take care. Bye-bye.